And the war was for a long time between the house of Saul and the house of David. And the house of David was going and strengthening, and the house of Saul was going and weakening. And sons were born to David at Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon by Achinoam the Jezreelite, and his second Deluiah by Abigail the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, son of Maachah, daughter of King Ptolemy of Gesir, and the fourth Orniah, son of Phagith, and the fifth Sabatiah of Abital, and the sixth Jethoram by David's wife Igal. These were born to David in Hebron. And it happened, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abenner was prevailing over the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, Resphah, daughter of Jael. And Memphibosheth, son of Saul, said to Abenner, "Why is it that you went in to my father's concubine?" And Abenner was very angry concerning the word of Memphibosheth. And Abenner said to him, "Am I a dog's head? Today I did mercy with the house of your father Saul, both concerning brothers and acquaintances, and I did not desert to the house of David. And do you question me today concerning an injustice of a woman? This is what God may do to Abenner, and this is what he may add to it, for just what the Lord has sworn to David. For thus will I do for him in this day, to take the kingdom from the house of Saul, and set up the throne of David over Israel, and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba." And Memphibosheth was no longer able to answer Abenner a word, from his being afraid of him. And Abenner sent messengers to David at Talim, where he was, immediately saying, "Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand is with you to return all the house of Israel to you." And David said, "Well, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I ask of you, saying, You shall never see my face, unless you bring Saul's daughter Melchol when you come to see my face." And David sent messengers to Saul's son Memphibosheth, saying, "Give me back my wife Melchol, whom I took for 100 foreskins of Aliphiles." And Memphibosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Phaltiel son of Selis. And her husband went with her, weeping behind her until Barakim. And Abenner said to him, "Go, return," and he returned. And Abenner said to the elders of Israel, saying, "Yesterday and the third day you were seeking David to rule over you. And now act, for the Lord spoke concerning David, saying, By the hand of my slave David, I will save Israel from the hand of Aliphiles, and from the hand of all their enemies." And Abenner spoke in the ears of Benjamin. And Abenner went to speak in the ears of David at Hebron, all that seemed pleasing in the eyes of Israel, and in the eyes of all the house of Benjamin. And Abenner came to David at Hebron, and with him 20 men. And David made a feast for Abenner and the men who were with him. And Abenner said to David, "Indeed I will arise and go and will gather all Israel to my lord the king, and I will make a covenant with you, and you will reign over all that your soul desires." And David sent away Abenner, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab arrived from the raid, and they brought much spoil with them. And Abenner was not with David at Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. And Joab and all his army came, and it was told Joab, saying, "Abenner son of Ner has come to David, and he has dismissed him, and he went away in peace." And Joab went in to the king and said, "What is this you have done? Behold, Abenner came to you, and why have you sent him off, and he has gone away in peace? Do you not know the wickedness of Abenner son of Ner, that he came to deceive you, and to learn your coming and your going, and to learn all that you are doing?" And Joab returned from David, and sent messengers after Abenner, and they brought him back from the cistern of Siram, and David did not know. And he brought Abenner back to Hebron. And Joab took him aside beside the gate to speak to him, ambushing him, and there he stabbed him in the loins, and he died by the blood of Asael, Joab's brother. And after these things David heard and said, "I am guiltless, and my kingdom forever from the Lord for the blood of Abenner son of Ner. Let it fall on the head of Joab, and on all his father's house. And may the house of Joab never be without one who has a discharge, or who is leprous, or who holds a cudgel, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks food." But Joab and his brother Abessa lay in wait for Abenner, because he had put to death their brother Asael in the battle at Gabaon. And David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, Tear your clothes and put on sackcloth, and beat yourselves before Abenner. And King David walked behind the bier. And they buried Abenner at Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at his grave. And all the people wept for Abenner. And the king lamented for Abenner and said, Shall Abenner die according to the death of Nabal? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not in fetters. He did not bring like Nabal. Before sons of injustice you fell. And all the people gathered to weep over him. And all the people came to make David eat a funeral meal with bread while it was still day. And David swore, saying, This is what God may do, and this may he add, because if the sun does not set, I will not taste bread or from anything. And all the people knew, and everything that the king did before the people was pleasing before them. And all the people and all Israel knew in that day that it was not from the king to put Abenner son of Ner to death. And the king said to his servants, Do you not know that a great leader has fallen in this day in Israel, and that today I am a kinsman and one appointed by a king? But these men, sons of Zeruiah, are too cruel for me. The Lord pay back the one who does evil in accordance with his wickedness. And Saul's son Mephibosheth heard that Abenner had died at Hebron, and his hands were weakened, and all the men of Israel grew faint. And Saul's son Mephibosheth had 2 men, captains of bands. The name of the one was Baanah, and the name of the second Rechab, sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, of the sons of Benjamin. For Beeroth is reckoned to the sons of Benjamin. And the Beerothites escaped to Gethaim, and were living there as resident aliens to this day. And Saul's son Jonathan had a son injured in the feet. He was a son of 5 years when the news about Saul and his son Jonathan came from Jezreel. And his nurse picked him up and fled. And it happened, when she hastened and withdrew, that he fell and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. And sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah went, and about the heat of the day they entered into the house of Mephibosheth, and he was sleeping on the bed at noonday. And behold, the porter of the house was cleaning wheat, and he slumbered and slept. And Rechab and Baanah the brothers escaped notice and entered into the house. And Mephibosheth was lying on his couch in his bedchamber. And they attacked him and put him to death, and beheaded him and took his head and returned by the western road the whole night. And they brought the head of Mephibosheth to David at Hebron, and said to the king, Behold, the head of Mephibosheth, son of Saul your enemy, who used to seek your life. And the Lord gave the Lord king vengeance on his enemies, as this day, on Saul your enemy, and on his offspring. And David answered Rechab and his brother Baanah, sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, and said to them, The Lord lives, who redeemed my life out of every adversity. For the one who told me that Saul had died, and he was as one bringing good news before me, and I seized and killed him at Sekhelach, to whom I ought to have given a reward for good tidings. And now wicked men have killed a righteous man, on his bed in his own house. And now I shall require his blood at your hand, and destroy you from the earth. And David commanded his lads, and they killed them, and docked their hands and their feet, and hung them at the well at Hebron. And the head of Mephibosheth they buried in the tomb of Abenner, son of Ner. And all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said to him, Behold, we are your bone and your flesh. And yesterday and the 3rd day, while Saul was king over us, it was you who led out and brought in Israel. And the Lord said to you, It is you who shall shepherd my people Israel, and it is you who shall become a ruler over Israel. And all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over all Israel. David was a son of 30 years when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. 7 years and 6 months he reigned at Hebron over Judah, and 33 years he reigned over all Israel and Judah at Jerusalem. And David departed and his men to Jerusalem against the Jebusite who inhabited the land. And it was said to David, You will not come in here. For the blind and the lame resisted, saying, David shall not come in here. And David took the stronghold Zion. This is the city of David. And David said on that day, Everyone who strikes down the Jebusite, let him attack with a dirk both the lame and the blind, and those who hate the soul of David. Therefore they shall say, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house of the Lord. And David settled in the stronghold, and this was called the city of David. And he built the city all around from the citadel and his house. And David would go, going and increasing, and the Lord Almighty was with him. And King Hiram of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar wood and craftsmen of wood, and craftsmen of stones, and they built David a house. And David perceived that the Lord had prepared him to be king over Israel, and that his kingdom was exalted, for the sake of his people Israel. And David took yet wives and concubines out of Jerusalem after he came from Hebron. And David yet had sons and daughters. And these are the names of those who were born to him in Jerusalem: Sammus and Sobab, and Nathan and Solomon, and Ebir and Elisus, and Naphek and Japhis, and Elisama and Elidai, and Eliphalath, Samai, Jesabath, Nathan, Galaman, Jebar, Thesus, Elphalat, Naged, Naphek, Janatha, Lisamis, Balimath, Eliphalath. And Aliphiles heard that David had been anointed king over Israel. And all the Aliphiles went up to seek David. And David heard and went down to the stronghold. And the Aliphiles came and converged on the valley of the Titans. And David inquired through the Lord, saying, Shall I go up against the Aliphiles, and will you give them into my hands? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for giving I will give the Aliphiles into your hands. And David came from the upper breaches, and smote the Aliphiles there. And David said, The Lord has breached my enemies, the Aliphiles, before me, like water is breached. Therefore the name of that place was called the upper breaches. And they abandoned their gods there. And David and those who were with him took them. And Aliphiles added still to come up, and converged in the valley of the Titans. And David inquired through the Lord, and the Lord said, You shall not go up to meet them. Return from them, and you shall meet them near the wailing. And it will be when you hear the sound of the confinement of the grove of the wailing. Then you shall go down to them, because then the Lord will go out before you, to strike down in the battle of the Aliphiles. And David did just as the Lord had commanded him, and struck down the Aliphiles from Gabaon to the land of Gezerah.